Hello and welcome along to Mondo Chelloveck Movies. My name is John and this video is going to be my entire Lucio Fulci collection and also a ranking of my top 10 favourites of his movies. Now I don't own every single movie by Lucio Fulci, I wish I did actually, although I would say up until the sort of 60s, the late 60s, his movies are mainly comedies, believe it or not, and not ones that I would sort of go for. They've got some spaghetti westerns in there which I might check out, I would like to check out, but they don't seem to be readily available. So I'll take you through these movies, what I've got in chronological order, and then I'll give you my rankings at the end of this video. So first off, from 1969 is Beatrice Cenci, but I think it's pronounced a different way, but I don't know what exactly that way is. I'm sure when you watch the film you will see it pronounced in a different way. This is a sort of period drama, which is a bit strange for Lucio Fulci. This is on 88 films. I've got to say the print on here is stunning. Also, the movie as well is a lot more brutal than I thought it would be. I love the slipcover. It's kind of reminiscent of an old Mills and Boon novel that you used to get in the shops for like 10 pence. But it's certainly not that when you look at it, the movie itself. So that's Beatrice Cenci. Next up is 1971's A Lizard in a Woman's Skin. This is a giallo movie, and it is quite explicit in times. This is released by Mondo. The good thing about it is, though, it's region free, and the picture quality in here is absolutely stunning. It's got a few special features on here, but I don't think you can get it on Blu-ray in the UK at all. But the good news is you can import this and it will play perfectly on your Blu-ray player or 4K player, and I've got to admit this one looks really spectacular as well. So that's Lizard in a Woman's Skin. Next up is 1972's Don't Torture a Duckling. This is the Arrow release, and it's got flippable art here as well, which I think that picture is a brilliant picture actually. It's one of my favourite sort of horror pictures, and this movie is quite unique in sort of Fulci's releases. It's not really a typical Fulci movie. It's gory to a certain extent. I think this film is quite controversial because of the subject matter that's portrayed in this movie. So that's Don't Torture a Duckling. Next up is 1977's The Psychic. This has just been released by Shameless, and it's a beautiful copy actually, numbered limited edition as well. It's a 2K restoration, and I've got to say it's absolutely stunning to look at. The movie itself is quite subdued. There is some gore in here, but it's more psychological drama, if I can say that, and it does feature somebody who's got extrasensory perception, and it's not a bad film actually, and I'm really happy to own this, and I think that cover is absolutely amazing. Next up is 1979 Zombie. This is the Arrow Blu-ray, and I must say that this is the best Blu-ray you will ever see of Zombie Flesh Eaters, as it's called in the UK. This is the reversible art on there, which I think it's okay, but it's not a patch for me on the original artwork there. That's the one that I always think of when I think of this movie, because of the pre-cert in the UK. It did have that cover on, and also it's got some great extras on here, so it's well worth owning itself, even though it's not the 4K version. But speaking of the 4K version, this is the Blue Underground's 4K of Zombie, or Zombie Flesh Eaters as it's known in the UK, and this looks absolutely spectacular. I've got to say that this is by far one of the best looking 4Ks of a movie that's kind of, let's say, like a low budget, although it doesn't look like a low budget when you watch it, and it's absolutely incredible. Getting embossed on the sleeve. I do urge anybody who wants to buy the ultimate in a Zombie or Zombie Flesh Eaters, do go for this one, because you can't go past it. It's absolutely stunning. Next up is Lucio Fulci. Took a little bit of a swerve here, because you think, all these horror films came at once. Well, there was a little bit few sort of additions to that, and this one here came next. It was Contraband, with this lovely lenticular sleeve, which I can get to go there. This is this famous scene from this race course where this fella gets assassinated by putting a gun in the mouth and blowing his brains out the back of his head. Wow. This is, for me, it's a great film. It's a shame that it's not available on Blu-ray in the UK, but I've got to say that this one looks really good on DVD. It's fully uncut as well, and it's really brutal. It's sort of like a mafia drama, and I would like to see Fulci do a few more of these mafia movies, because I think he's done a really stunning version of this. So that's Contraband, or as it's known sometimes, the Naples Connection. Next up is City of the Living Dead from 1980. This is the Arrow 4K restoration on this disc, and for me, I've had this in a few different versions. I've had it on the Blu-ray of the Blue Underground, and it looked good, but this one for me is the best version. So that's City of the Living Dead. Next up is 1981's The Black Cat. This always comes across to me like a Hammer horror movie. It just has that look to me, and this is a 2K restoration, and I must admit this looks really, that's the alternative cover. This looks great, this movie, and I had a great time with it. A lot of people don't think it's that good, but I think it's a really good suspenseful tale on the Black Cat sort of fable. And yeah, I do think that this is well worth a watch. If you think that some of the movies that you hear about, the Fulci's sort of big movies, I would include things like this, like Contraband, The Black Cat. I would take a look at them because there is a lot more to them than just people think that, oh, it's just one that it wasn't a hit or it wasn't a good movie. I beg to differ on that one. So that's The Black Cat. So next up is 1981's The Beyond. This is the Grindhouse version, which comes with 2 Blu-rays and also the soundtrack CD. The soundtrack CD, this is absolutely incredible. This, for me, at this moment, is the definitive version of this movie. It just looks spectacular. It looks much better than the Arrow version, I think. And I think that if you wanted to get the definitive version at this moment, then look no further than this one. It's an absolutely stunning set, and I do think that this one will be coming out soon on 4K. I don't know who's going to release it. I would love someone like Blue Underground to release it, although I don't think they have the rights. I think Arrow might release it, but I'm not too sure if Grindhouse releasing. They don't release 4Ks at the minute, so they might not. It might be a little bit of a rights battle, but I would love to see this coming out in 4K. That's The Beyond. Next up is 1981's The House by the Cemetery. This is another Blue Underground release, and it does look absolutely stunning, as they all do. If you ever see a release by Blue Underground on 4K, you know you are going to get a stunning version of this movie. So once I got this movie, there was no reason to keep all the other ones. That's why these are good to get these 4Ks and get rid of all the other ones. You don't have to double dip in that. So that's The House by the Cemetery. Next up is 1982's The New York Ripper. This is another great Blue Underground release, fully uncut as they all are. And to be honest, honestly, the picture quality isn't here, and the sound as well are all in Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos, the whole thing. So you can't. To me, I don't think these will ever be equaled. And it's great to know that you've got this movie finally in the best form ever, and you're not going to need to buy another one. So that's The New York Ripper. Next up is 1982's Manhattan Baby. Now this is the Shameless DVD of it. And if I'm honest, I have heard that it's out in Blu-ray in America, but I've heard the Blu-ray is a little bit kind of lackluster. So for me, I've opted just to keep this DVD for now. I do think that this might come out somewhere down the line. I'd love Arrow or 88 to get their hands on this, because I think they could do a great job on this. I would love to see a 4K of it. It might be not that much 4K coming up, because this is when Fulci started to sort of slip down in his ratings for his classic movies. But this movie is quite good. It's quite gory as well. It's often forgot about. So as much as I like this movie, I'm not a fan of the title. I think Manhattan Baby doesn't really do it justice. I think they should have had a different title. I know there is a different title for it, but I think they should not release it as Manhattan Baby, but I think it will get released there. And I think because of that, it doesn't really have a good following, because I remember hearing the title and I thought it didn't really make me want to go and see this movie. So that's Manhattan Baby. Next up is 1986's The Devil's Honey. This is released on 88 Movies, and it's this looks spectacular. I've got to admit that when you get to sort of the later works in Lucio Fulci, people say, oh, they're not that good. But I had a great time with this. I found it to be much better than I thought it was going to be. And if I'm honest, I do think that Lucio Fulci's later movies are better than people make them out to be. I know he's probably went a little bit too long in his career, and he made movies that weren't that great towards the very end of his career. But the ones I've got here on the later works, I would say after The New York Ripper, that's when you would call it like the later works of Lucio Fulci. I think they are good, but they're not as good as the sort of classic ones. Next up is 1987's Enigma. This is released on the Italian collection by 88, and this movie is quite a good movie actually. It's more a sort of it's a bit like a suspenseful movie. It's a bit more getting towards people who are like, you know, psychic sort of stuff, and a bit like the Psychic. And it's a decent movie, and it's got a lovely print on here, but it's one of the ones that came in the later part of Lucio Fulci's career. That's Enigma. Next up is a personal favourite of mine, is Zombie 3 or Zombie Flesh Eaters 2. Yeah, this is when you get into some strangeness. The thing with this one here, with this has another disc on it, and I've got to admit the second disc isn't that great, but if you want to collect the best version of it, this Zombie 3 is that, with a slipcover, or make sure it has the 2 discs on it, because there is another version of it that came out, and this one here was a single disc. So as you can see, Zombie Flesh Eaters 2 is Zombie 3, the old confusing sort of story about this zombie range. So that's Zombie 3. Next up is 1988's Touch of Death. I do find when I get to the sort of latter Fulci movies that I do think, is this going to be good or not? But I found this to be quite good. It's not as good as his classics, but it's a watchable movie. It's not one of his worst ones, should I say. I think there is a few bad ones out there, which I haven't got. But I still would probably pick them up if they got released cheaply in the UK, because I do like to collect his movies, even the ones that aren't that good. Next up is 1990's A Cat in the Brain. This is a really good, probably Lucio Fulci's last great movie. Now this one lights up in the dark, and when you turn the lights off you can still see it. It's amazing, and this front bit lights up as well. So this is, and funny enough, it's been released as well on the Italian collection, and the print on these is exactly the same, and I think the extras on here are exactly the same as well. So you're not missing out if you can't get this one. You can still get it all there apart from the CD. So for me, this is probably the best version of this movie, and it's a stunning release, as all Grindhouse ones are. It's quite grainy, the picture, as they are in both of them, but I think that's just the way it was shot, quite low budget. So that's the movies. Let's see how I rank them. So at number 10, I've got The Devil's Honey. This is much better than you would think. It's got a quite strange sort. It doesn't give anything away by the title or the picture, but there's a lot involved in this movie. But it's quite funny that the main protagonist does sort of take her revenge out on a fella, which you don't often see in movies. I'll just leave it at that. So at number 10, it's The Devil's Honey. So at number 9 is The Black Cat. I do think that this movie comes across like a Hammer movie, which is great because I love Hammer films. And the fact is that Lucio Fulci shot this in the UK, which makes me think that that's another reason why it looks more like a Hammer film. I think it's very well shot as well. A lot of Fulci's movies are a lot better shot than you would think, actually, when you do see them in stunning versions, or the way they were meant to be seen back in the day. They look absolutely amazing, and all these are uncut, of course, and a lot of these didn't get a great release on VHS as well. So that's number 9 is The Black Cat. Number 8 is Contraband. Now this is strange because it's not a horror movie at all. It's more like a mafia movie. It's very bloodthirsty, very brutal. This is uncut, which at the time when it first came out, and I saw it fully uncut on a bootleg, I never thought this would get released in the UK fully uncut, because it is quite violent. And I would love to think that, I know Shameless have got it here in a DVD, but I would love to see somebody pick this up on Blu-ray. I think this would be a perfect thing for 88 movies to release on the Italian collection. So that's Contraband. Next up at number 7 is City of the Living Dead. This movie is one of Lucio Fulci's classic movies. You will have a great time in this movie. Yes, it doesn't make complete sense, and you've got to forgive the sort of Italian market for putting out movies that are a little bit they don't make 100% sense, and don't try and make too much sense of it. If you say I don't understand it, then that's just the way it is. Don't try and think, well, what does the ending mean? Because probably you will never know. But I do find that, with that being said, that this movie offers a lot, and it's one of those movies that was previously banned as well, and this one looks spectacular. And please get this out in a 4K. So that's The City of the Living Dead. So at number 6 is a movie that a lot of people don't like at all. I know that Fulci directed some of it, but not all of it, and it is Zombie 3 or Zombie Flesh Eaters 2. I think that this movie is a right riot. It's got some crazy stuff in it. The zombies in here are fast moving, which is a complete opposite of Zombie or Zombie 2, which was or Zombie Flesh Eaters. Wow. And I think that this movie delivers a lot, and you shouldn't ignore it, because a lot of people don't rate this at all. But I think if you just know what you're getting into, it's nowhere near as good as Zombie, but for the fact it's just pure fun, and it's just a crazy story, and it's very enjoyable and very watchable. So that's why I've got it at number 6. That's Zombie 3. Next up at number 5 is Don't Torture a Duckling. This movie, I would have put this lower, but when I recently rewatched a lot of these Fulci movies, I thought, man, this is a lot better than I thought it was. Yes, it's an early giallo. It does have a sort of, the subject matter is not its usual subject matter. It's got a lot of gore in it, a lot of violence in it, and the subject matter is more to do with abduction of children. But I do think that this is a great movie. It's a great giallo, and it looks spectacular as well. Arrow have done a great job on this. Love this slipcover. I didn't like the slipcover that much, but when you watch the film, you do know that the slipcover plays a big part in it. And obviously the title is a bit strange, but when you watch the movie, you know exactly what it's all about. So that's Don't Torture a Duckling. So at number 4, I have The New York Ripper. Now, The New York Ripper is fully uncut here, and it was always a hard one to get uncut in the UK. I don't think it'll ever get released in the UK fully uncut, although there is a version by Shameless, but it's not fully uncut. This movie, by today's standards, I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's that gory. But you've got to imagine in 1982 when this came out, it was like nothing had been before. It looks spectacular. It's really well done. There's a lot of violence in here, and the Blue Underground 4K is the way to go for me. So that's The New York Ripper. So at number 3, I have The House by the Cemetery. Now, all these movies in the top 10 are sort of classics for me. I don't think you can pick one of these up and think, well, that was rubbish. I think you'll have a good time with all of these. So this one here, The House by the Cemetery, when I watched this again recently on 4K, it kind of brought it to life for us, because it was a quite dark movie. I've always seen it as a dark movie, but you could see a lot more in the darkness of this movie, which made it a lot more enjoyable. And the fact is that when I've watched it on a rerun and kind of clicked recently, well, on that watch, that is basically Fulci's version of The Shining, it makes a lot more sense, actually. It doesn't make full sense. A lot of these ones by Fulci don't make full sense, but they are what they are, and I do enjoy them for that. And I can get past the fact that sometimes I'm not going to be able to work everything out in a Fulci movie. So that's A House by the Cemetery. At number 2, I have The Beyond. Now, I was always wanting to see this movie for a long time when it first came out, and you couldn't see it at all. And it was one of the ones where I struggled to find, but I found it on a really bad VHS copy, and it wasn't that good to look at, but I knew there was something in this movie that I really liked. So when I watched it recently, especially on this version, I do think that this movie makes a lot more sense to me. It doesn't make complete sense to me, but as again, with it being Fulci, it doesn't really matter, because I am used to the fact that Fulci sometimes has movies that kind of play out as a sort of bit of a like a storytelling set pieces, and I think that this is his best version of that movie, where it's a bit more, it leaves a lot more to your imagination, and in fact it doesn't explain a lot that much. But I love this movie. It's got some absolute great set pieces. It's got one of my best favourite gore effects of all time, where, and not spoil the movie when I tell you this, where a little girl gets shot in the head and the top of her head goes flying off, and you can see into her sort of head and her brains. It's an absolutely stunning effect. One that I saw in a magazine long before I ever saw this movie, and I just wanted to see that scene because this still of this gunshot wound was just absolutely amazing. So that's at number 2. That's The Beyond. So that leaves at number 1, and I don't imagine anybody who watches this channel would be surprised by this. It's Zombie, or Zombie Flesh Eaters. This is 1979, and it looks spectacular in 4K. I urge anybody who wants to see this movie in its best version, get this. This movie delivers in every single level. My favourite zombie movie before this was Dawn of the Dead, which I still think is absolutely brilliant. But this one recently has overtook that, and it's just got everything in it. There's so many set pieces in. The movie makes complete sense as well, which is great. And for me, I think that there is no better Fulci movie ever. If you want to get in the UK, you just buy the Zombie Flesh Eaters on Blu-ray, on Arrow. And I would like to see this getting released in the UK on 4K, but I think that they'll never touch this one. This is the zenith of this movie, and is also my favourite horror movie of all time. So in a later video I'm going to put this top 10 with the top 10 with Dario Argento that I recently did. I'll link that one down below, and then I'm going to tell you what I think is the best 10 out of those two massive directors coming together. So look out for that one down the line. Okay, so thanks for watching, you take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.